Welcome to A-Side Boxing, ladies and gentlemen. Today's guest is the legendary Mr. Barry Hunter. How you doing, Barry?
I'm good, Ray. How you guys doing?
We doing good.
Doing fine.
So we got the panel here, of course, Marlon Parker and Carlos Massey. Today, we're going to talk about you, man. It's all about you. I want to lead off with a conversation that we talked about earlier, and I'll try to paraphrase. We talked about relationships as it pertains to boxing, and it was for context, it was about coaches, the mentality of coaches, I guess you would say. And you told me something that was profound, and it was the price you pay for living on this earth is to give.
Yeah, to help other people.
Yeah, help other people.
Yeah, you cannot live in this world. I mean, I'm a firm believer in the Most High. And if God gave, and I feel like I've been favored along the way. So if I'm able to eat, I have a place to stay, cars to drive, blah, 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 so on and so forth. And then you got this person that you ride by every day. There's a guy that's on St. Monica Road, in fact, that I ride by often. And, he's out there every day, he's doing the thing with his buses or what have you. And I'm in the car. Rain hitting him, no rain is hitting me, I'm eating. He don't have no food. And it just don't set right with me. The ride past this dude every day and not give, And so I figured that to help someone else along the way, and God favored me, that's my rent to pay for living in this world and on this earth.
That's great. Just to piggyback off that, but you give so much of yourself. At what point do you feel like you've overextended yourself? I remember sitting through a motivational lecture, I think Waleed, the guy from Philly, and he said at some point he had to just stop and say, who's going to tow the tow truck?
Yeah, no, I get that as well. I had a conversation one time. Ray Leonard and I, we were on our way to the studio. We were getting ready to do some broadcasting. I forgot what network it was on. I want to say it was Bounce TV. I'm not sure. And we were just sitting in the back of the limo. We were kind of kicking it. And he had asked me, and this is Ray Leonard now, how do you, get by, in other words, your everyday life as far as dealing with maybe, your friends or your family or what have you? Because the pressure, having to come up with, certain things to aid them and help them along the way, he said it's crushing. And I said, and I get it. I said, I learned one word, Ray, and that word helped me out a lot. And it took me a while because of the person that I am. And he said, what was that? I said, I learned how to say no. And it's just that simple. Sometimes you have to say no because you can help and help so much till you find out. In other words, it's like Harriet Tubman. I don't want to get too crazy with it, but think about how unselfish she was.
Yes.
To escape from tyranny, to escape from slavery. The average one, and I may have been included in that number, would escape and wouldn't look back. Mm-hmm. Not only did she not look back, she went back several times.
Exactly.
Now they say that she saved, what was it? I want to say between 300 to 3,000 people. And initially she did, but those people had kids, their kids had kids,
generations.
So this woman saved potentially millions of people. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? How unselfish was that? Mm-hmm. And so when you look at people like her, Sojourner Truth, Marcus Garvey, Malcolm, Martin, and the rest of them, and ultimately a lot, Jesus Christ, and ultimately a lot of them, paid with their lives. They made a tremendous sacrifice, bro. So how much different am I from them?
Right. And I wanted to ask you too, how does it feel like over all the years of service to know that you are directly responsible for a lot of these these fighters, bringing them along all the way into adulthood?
Yeah, that's some crushing pressure too. You know, when y'all was little boys, you know, at the time, Carlos, I remember many nights that, you know, because I had a construction company and I had a regular 8-hour job, and then again I had the gym. And so by the time I left all of that and I got home after I dropped all the kids off, it'd be about 10:30, 11 o'clock every night, you know. And then I had to get up in the wee hours of the morning, get the kids ready, help get the kids ready, and do it all again. But before I went to sleep, the night before, I had to argue with my wife for about 30 minutes, wondering why I'm so late coming home
Yeah.
from the gym. You know what I mean? And so to do all of that, yes, it was a lot of pressure. You know, it was a many sleepless nights, stressful days, stressful nights, you know, but nevertheless, it felt right. You feel me?
Mhm.
And so early on in this conversation, I talked about all those heroes of the past, you know, and the way I'm thinking, if God favored you, you know what I mean? You got an obligation, an opportunity to pay that thing back, man, through, like I said, giving and helping other people. So I'm not looking for no sympathy or nothing like that. I made a choice. You know, I think I made the right choice, you know, and yes, it was hard, but nevertheless, it was necessary.
So you're one of the most accomplished trainers coming out this area, man. You competed against, you know, Hall of Fame coaches. Can you mind running that list, a few names? I know we talked a little bit about them, but I'd like to hear from you.
Well, before I get to the names that, you know, that I actually competed against, and there were a lot of them, you know, I stood on the shoulders of giants in the city. You know what I mean? Adrian Davis, Ham Johnson.
Yeah.
That, you know, and Ham talked to you crazy, but nevertheless, you know, he pumped me up a many a day. Mr. Dave Jacobs, Mr. Greenham, Mr. McCain, that I love, you know, and I know I'm a Mr. Hinton, and I may have missed it, Mr. Dave Jacobs, you know, that always had a kind word for me, you know what I mean? Even when days and times were rough, you know, they had, you know, good things to say to me, and was able to guide me through that wilderness. And so when I did finally meet Angelo Dundee, Mr. George Washington from New York, who, you know, worked with people like Kevin Kelly, Mark Breland, you know, just to name two. Emmanuel Stewart, which was a mentor to me. I had a chance to go up against all of these guys, the Garcia brothers, Freddie Roach, so many, you know, and it was just a blessing, man, you know, because a lot of dudes I grew up watching on TV, but to be opposite corner, you know, of them, it was great, man. It was great.
Hey, Bert, how do you stay grounded? Because there are some trainers and coaches who they've never met a microphone they don't like. And you're always the same everywhere you are. You actually kind of shy away from it, but when they do catch you, you'll speak on it, but your personality doesn't overtake the interview, and you're just out, you're back to doing whatever you do. How does it, when you see your colleagues and you see your counterparts, they're so vocal and they're just maybe advertising or they're promoting themselves, but you have a totally different approach. It's all about the fighter. I guess it's all about the sport.
That's my passion and that's my love. And that's what it's always been about. I try to be as organic as possible. You know, me personally, I don't like synthetic people, man. I never have. You know, I know for the most part, you can bear witness to the fact I've been consistent my whole career. Some of those guys need that sort of thing. I don't. I argue, you know, with a lot of my colleagues about, you know, you got to get on social media, you got to do this, that. Now, I just had this conversation with a partner of mine in Florida. And that's his thing. That's what he's into. You know, he's made a lot of money pertaining to it. but it's just not me. You know, I got into the sport because I love the history of the game. You know, I love the athletes, you know, and I love what the game, you know, represented. And boxing is one of those sports that don't discriminate. I mean, you could be an ex-felon, a crackhead, a thug in the street, and boxing is still accepted versus going to Wimbledon or places like that where they're creds if they see you coming through the door. That's one of the reasons why I love boxing so much. And you can be you in the boxing game. Now, I will say that this new style of fight with the, you know, all the cursing and going crazy, and I'm not with that, man. You know what I mean? If we're talking about people like Tom Mellon, if we're talking about people like Jack Johnson, if we're talking about Ray Robinson, or you know, Lupe Pintor, you know, Ray Leonard, you know, just boxers and the history of boxing, we can do that all day. I can't get with the garbage. And so therefore, after we do our job, my mission wasn't to get on the microphone. My mission was to go out there and accomplish that win or get that world title like that belt that you got in front of you right there. That's my mission. The rest of the stuff I'm not concerned with. Not at all.
250. That's it. You don't even have to take a punch.
And it's like, you know, it's crazy. And that's true what you just said, because you got a lot of people, when that microphone cut on, man, they lose their minds.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And it's almost like the movie, like Brand, I was speaking about the movie The Lord of the Rings. I love that trilogy because I understand what it meant. You know, there were several rings, but there was one ring that controlled all of the rings.
Yep.
And nobody can handle that ring of power because it drove crazy, except for that one fragile little, what you call
Gollum.
Yeah.
Right.
Speaking of Gollum,
That's right. That's right.
The twin.
Yeah, and that power can sometimes drive you crazy. And I get it, because I've been on the brink before as well. But nevertheless, man, you got to dig down within yourself, man. And if you really are about the game, the history of the game, and the athlete, then you'll be okay. You know what I mean? Some people just lose their mind with it.
Yeah, Bird, you're a well-respected coach. I've known you for years, thoroughbred. Tell us why you think a lot of these new fighters bring you in to their camps to enhance their skills.
Well, you know, I like to think it's based on that, you know, what it is that I do. You know, like I said, I'm an organic type of guy, you know what I mean? I'm a ride die type of guy, you know. I'm not going to just roll with you in your high time. I'm going to be there in your lowest time too. And, you know, when you look at some of the stages that, you know, over the years that I've been on, from ground zero, from the juniors all the way up to HBO, all the way up to pay-per-view, you know, I know a little bit, just a little bit about the sport and what I'm doing. You know what I mean? If I wanted to be a billionaire, I'm not going to go to Joe Blow in the corner that's been there for the last 30 years, you know, with no bread, you know, and Bill Gates standing across the street. I'm going to get the information from somebody that's been there.
Exactly.
You know what I mean? And that's what it's all about. So when you see me in the corners of some of these, you know, soon to be and some Hall of Fame fighters, you know what I mean? It's because they know I know what it is that I'm talking about when I'm doing.
All right. So here's the next question I got for you, Barry. I've seen you in the corner of world champions, both male and females, right? Ideally, which one gives you the least amount of pain?
You know what? I'm gonna go beyond the fifth. I'm not gonna plead the fifth on this one. I'm gonna answer that question. In the amateurs, believe it or not, the girls were the easier ones to work with. You know, prime example, when we used to be in Colorado Springs, and you know, I was a member of that U.S. national team for years.
Yes, sir.
Which is where, you know, I met a lot of these stars. Excuse me. And I remember we used to get up like about 5:30, 6 o'clock, but we had to run in the morning. And every time the girls in Colorado Springs would be the first ones outside. Rain, sleet, snow, whatever, cold, hot. They were always the first ones outside. The guys, we used to have to go knock on the door, drag them out the bed, the whole time. So in the amateurs, dealing with the women, it was way easier than dealing with the guys. I remember Freddie Roach, myself, Mike Stafford, Kenny Porter, Ron Sims. We were up in Colorado and we had all these guys up there, you know, and like I said, we'd be on the bed, they'd be arguing with the guys trying to drive them on the bed the whole night, and the girls be out there ready to go every day. So in the amateurs, I would say dealing with the women were easier to deal with. In the pros, it's not the same, like, cause of course we just have Franchon Cruz, which is, you know, shout out to her, the newly crowned undisputed super middleweight champ, the first one in history to do it.
Right, well deserved.
But and she's from, of course, our neck of the woods. But the thing is, Franchon in the pros, just like the guys, ain't no different from the guys. Same thing, same growing pains, the same issues, the whole nine that the guys had. In the amateurs, it was way different.
When you just spoke, just to bring it back to that, the push, getting them up in the morning, pushing them out of the bed, basically getting them going. In the pros, you've trained lots of people, you've worked with lots of people. How difficult is it when you see that a guy's past his prime, or he wants you to, you know, he wants you to come into his camp, and you know, you work with him a little bit and you're like, how do you have that conversation? Are you sure you want to do this? Is this, you know?
Yeah, it's never, especially because they used to tell us a long time ago, and I never knew what the old timers meant when they used to tell me when I was young. Don't ever fall in love with fighters, because they'll break your heart, right? Never knew what they were talking about, but when you experience it, you know, it's totally different, you know. Yes, eventually, because fighters are, unlike some of the other sports, you know, tend to go past their prime a lot of times, you know, more so than any other sport. And yes, it's difficult, you know, to have that conversation because you love these guys, you know what I mean? And you would like to think that love is, you know, returned back to you. But, you know, when you see them not being able to take the punches as much, you know, when you see the focus is a little different, you know, when you see that as hard as they may try, they still, you know, you just can't get there. You gotta have that conversation, you know, and you gotta be realistic about it. I looked at Jamel Herring's interview after he fought yesterday, and you know, you can see it on his face, but also you can see that, you know, a part of him wanted to stay, but the realistic part of him stays time to go.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And it's okay. You know what I mean? You know, I watch people burn out in the amateurs. Same way. When Ray and Carlos was fighting, I remember this one particular fighter, you know, and I won't even call his name. In the tournaments, he used to get slaughtered, man. It seemed like he'd always get either stopped, knocked out, or brutalized, you know, in a fight. And you could tell, listening to his voice, listening to his speech, looking at his mechanics, that he suffered a lot in the amateurs. He never even threw a professional punch. You know, and God forbid that if that ever happened, you know, to one of my, I won't allow it to happen. You know, one of my younger kids. The first time I see a hint of it, it's over. And you may go somewhere else, but I won't be doing it with him.
Right. And I'm glad you brought that up, Bird, because it's not spoken of. Back in the day, like a lot of fighters was going so hard in the amateurs that they never made it pro. And like one thing I respected about you is how you groomed your fighters, how you brought them up, brought them along the way, gave them confidence and discipline too. So that's one thing that really stuck with me out the years about you. And you continue to do it in the pros. You have some of the most memorable moments in the corner with your fighters. A lot of people who don't know you don't understand that that's real. What you're telling them is real. It's genuine love.
Yo, I appreciate that. No, I'm gonna share a story with y'all that I tell, so many people. Years and years and years ago, we had a situation where somebody got hurt bad. And I've seen people lose their lives in this thing before they get a chance to take their headgears off. When you have to explain to somebody's parents that kid is not coming home anymore, or coming home different from what they left their house or their home, and do something to you, and it changed you forever. And I was at that crossroads. So, it was either keep going, find a reason to keep going, or go ahead on and use this reason to get up out of there. The tipping point was when I laid it all on the table, because I was there. When I laid it all on the table, the good outweighed the bad as to how I ended up staying. But yes, I've seen people in the gym get hurt and lose their life in this stuff.
Yeah, man.
As well.
I've personally seen you in action, man. I'm actually a little bit mad at you. That was a couple of times I was sparring. You ain't jumping with the ring fast enough.
when Ray was young, and Ray can attest to it, Ray got headbanging DNA in him as well.
Yeah.
And I'm in the gym now. That incident that I spoke to you guys about, heightened my senses and my awareness of what to look for. In the gym, I've seen people get knocked out in the gym. 16-ounce gloves on headgears. I've seen jaws being broke, noses, eye sockets, the whole seizures. You name it, I've seen it. I've been through. You feel me? And this is in the gym. Yeah. And believe it or not, most damage is done in the gym. Yeah.
So
when you see the guys, on TV, God forbid, but the ones that get hurt or injured on TV, a lot of times it's done before they even get to the
Exactly.
Before they get to the fight. Yeah. And I'm glad you touched on that because as a fighter, I've also seen where, sometimes sparring is more brutal than the actual fight. The preparation is too hard to the point where it's actually having a negative impact on the fighter than more of a positive. I know when I say old school, it's crazy. I'm saying old school because it's new school to me. How, working with you and working with other coaches of your caliber, your philosophies it was different. You guys, sparring was training. It was an extension of training. It wasn't kind of what you see kind of today, where you see folks in there with cameras and they're literally trying to kill each other, tear each other heads off, and you end up leaving a training, training is controlled. You control the variables. Like, sometimes it's, you fight with one hand, or sometimes you just work on defense, no offense with a lesser skilled fighter. But the intent was always good. The intent was to create something that wasn't there before. And I just don't see that a lot nowadays. When I look at some of these videos, it's kind of like you just showboating one fighter at the expense of a lesser skilled fighter. Is that your observation, or?
Yeah, I get where you're going with that. Yes, it's a new day. We're in the age of social media. What can I say? I struggle with it all the time because it's not me, and all the people that I work with, or the partners or the networks, when they try to drum it into me, and I get it. It can be a force. As far as business is concerned, I get that, but this boxing that we love so much it's not the same. It's not based on history or none of that. It's based on views and likes.
Yeah. Few fighters.
I was at we were in California, and I believe it was Austin Trout. And this was my first time ever seeing the Paul brothers. I didn't know nothing about them, again, social media stuff. So just so happened when I walked up, I ran into Shannon Briggs, which is a friend.
Yeah.
Told him to Shannon if Shannon was with one of them. And then he was with, I think he was on the other side of one of the Paul brothers. And the other guy was Larry Wade, which is our strength and conditioning coach for Sean Porter.
Mhm.
He's working with Rolly Romero.
Mhm.
He worked with me with Tank. And he works with me with, there's another Taylor Plant. And so this was my first time. I didn't know who the guy was. We go into the fight. Austin get ready to do his thing. And so in the corner, there was a glob of reporters and this guy. So I was like, what's going on with this here? And that's when I first ever got a taste of this Jake Paul or his brother. I forgot which one it was. And they had crazy media for a guy that was a YouTuber. Yeah, I didn't understand it. You know what I mean? And then when they started talking about the purses that they were getting, and these guys was fighting on pay-per-view versus people that fight 24/7, that's their job to do. It was a huge difference. That's when I knew the power of social media.
Okay.
I love, if you ask me somebody about, or something about legendary fighters, such as the ones that I spoke of earlier, like Tom Melano, who was born into slavery in Virginia in the late 1700s. He was our first world champ, to be honest with you. Jack Johnson, who fought during a time where they in the audience with pistols and nooses shooting and threatening them, calling them the N-word, gonna kill you, this, that, and another. And this man had to perform under those type of circumstances. And not only did he perform, he was champ. He was the man with a smile on his face. Now, you and I both know, Ray, this is what I was telling you earlier today. You and I both know, we all have feelings. Nobody want to be spoke to that way or spoke about in such a manner, or defamed or what have you. But people like Jack Johnson, I take my hat off to him, man. To be able to do what he did under those circumstances, you can't tell me this man was not just a champ in the ring, he was a champ outside the ring. Outstanding.
Yes. I ain't built for that. Yeah.
Talking about.
I could not have done it. Now I know that, when God favors you, he equipped you with certain things to be able to, complete his tasks.
Exactly.
You feel me?
Yes.
That's just the bottom line. And we are all built a different way. You've been in the military. You got generals. You got captains, lieutenants, sergeants. Everybody can't be the commander.
No.
You have to have soldiers. Jack Johnson was a soldier, man.
True.
Unbelievable.
Barry, I have to ask you about an incident that came up in the gym. Were you there when Ray threw on his own towel?
Shut up.
No, but I'm gonna tell you the story. And I know Ray remember this. Carlos, you remember this too. So we were in Atlantic City years ago, right? And there was this kid from Virginia, and this dude had an unorthodox style. He was short. He had a corny headgear on, the whole nine. But he would windmill and knock people out. I mean, put them to sleep, right? Ray fought this dude, right? We tell him to keep his hands up, man. Keep your hands up. We saw this dude whirlwind because he can punch. Showed up, Ray go in there, and man, he got clear. Boom. I heard 8 count the whole time. He got back on his dog and he pulled it out. He beat the dude, but nevertheless, he showed me then what kind of dog he had in him. Because the average guy that fought this sport, I've seen this man knock people out. Had one dude knocked out a heel press so viciously, the dude couldn't fall because he was tied up in a rope, and the man teed off. You remember that, Ray?
I remember that.
And I stopped it. The referee was in there, but he was old. We were in the audience saying, screaming, stop it, stop it. He never did. I got out of my seat, jumped up, and I put my arms around the kid. He was outstanding up in front of his parents and everything.
Yeah. You know, it felt like when the first Sorcerer Supreme knocked Dr. Strange's soul out of his body and sent him to another dimension.
Yeah, this dude was a soul snatcher. But Ray in that fight, he made me proud, man. He ended up saying, "No, you can't have my soul." He took it back.
I was temporarily displaced.
He was messing all the sheets up, drooling all week.
Ray went back to diapers.
Man, be quiet. Applesauce sandwiches. This is why I can't get along with these guys, man.
Hey, so Barry, what do you do? We've been talking about, you know, all the stuff you've been giving and doing for others. What do you do for yourself? Like, you got vacation time set aside for yourself? How do you mentally rebound from all the stuff you got going on?
To be honest with you, Carlos, my whole time is, because I go so much, and I've been around boxing damn near all my life, man. My downtime is just sitting in the house watching old movies, man. You feel me? I don't even watch fights. It's rare that I watch a boxing match. The only time I really watch it is somebody that we got to study for, you know, or prepare for. But for the most part, man, I just try to find that quiet place, you know, watching my TV and listen to music. That's pretty much it. You know, my wife, along with a few friends of mine, close friends, they always tell me, man, you need to get out of here. You need to get away. You know, I only go on vacation once every 5 to 10 years, man, to be honest with you.
But you know what, B?
I'm just happy to be here.
I'm glad you keep bringing that up because that kind of keeps coming back. What's your favorite movie, man? We got our favorites, but I gotta hear yours.
I love Shawshank Redemption.
Oh, that was good.
The book was better than the movie. The book was better than the movie.
He's the
I love
nerd.
Shawshank. I love the Godfather trilogy. I love movies with meanings behind them. And I love Unusual Suspect with Kaiser.
Yeah.
But after you watch it the first time, it loses just a little bit of steam.
Right.
But, yeah, my favorite film is Cape Fear.
Cape Fear?
The remake and the original.
Did you see the original one?
Of course, man. I have them both. I don't know which one is better. Yeah, they're both. Yeah.
And series-wise, Twilight Zone.
Twilight.
Yes,
Yeah, that was a mind trip right there.
Yeah.
What about you?
Favorite what movie?
Favorite movie?
He gonna say something with Barney in it.
I mean, I don't know. I got a lot of movies I like. I don't know. I can't come up with one right now.
Good, we don't have to edit it.
Right.
Good. That's why I get blocked.
We
on
know what your
Facebook.
favorite movie is.
My personal favorite, and I like a lot of movies, but in that same vein, I like The Departed. That's one of my favorites. Yeah, but if we go to science fiction, then of course I love, and it's not really that popular, but Chronicles of Riddick.
Riddick, that's a good
It had a backstory to it where you can, if you really like listen to it, like I like those movies that they're all really kind of saying something in the background, you know. But it was an interesting movie. That said, those are my two favorites.
That's because you look like E.T.
Whoa. But you look like your brother. So anyway.
You guys are, hey, Barry, they disrespectful.
We got two questions, Barry. One, what was your most memorable moment in I guess in your career? And two, what was the funniest moment? You've seen it all.
memorable moment, of course, is when we won a world title. When we first won our first world title here in DC.
Yes, sir.
Against Amir Khan. That was electric, man. That was so. You know how you go through all the hard stuff earlier on.
Yes.
And when you get there, and you know this particular time is your time.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? I was so relaxed, going to that fight. I was in the back sleeping. I had my eyes on.
Mm-hmm.
I was chilling. You know what I mean? And then when we got there and the fight got heated, even though the fight got heated, I knew that this was our time. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
That might have been one of my more memorable times. And that may be tied with even this last one with Franchon winning. You know,
Yes.
you know,
Undoubtedly.
yeah, I remember times when, you know, she used to come in the gym. Then I quote the Bible once more. The Bible has a quote in there, and God says to be still and know that I am God. So don't move. Just stay right there. And how many times have we all wished for something, prayed for something, you know, and then, you know, you in the right place. It don't feel right at that time, but you're in the right place and you move. As soon as you move, that blessing drop right there where you should have been at.
Exactly.
You know what I mean? And so she used to come in the gym sometimes, you know, her and her husband, and Franchon and I have been together in Glen for about 10 years, been with me and Boogie now for about 10 years. And I remember the days she came in there wasn't such a good day, you know, days, you know, filled with tears, the whole nine, and I'm being crossed over, I'm being looked over, the whole nine. And she hung in there. And one of our first belts, I'm not sure if it was a WBC or BO, but she won the title. And then she turned around and won another title. And then we got set back against Alejandra Jimenez with the, you know, whole drug scam and the whole time. And then we sat there. We didn't know what was going on. Then all of a sudden, we were scheduled to fight. George Kambosos was scheduled to fight Lopez. We got to Miami. We flew to Miami. When we got to Miami, we were literally checking in to the hotel. Kambosos comes up, asks us whether we're here for the fight. I didn't know who he was at the time. And we told him, yeah. He said, well, the fight is canceled, you know, and he goes on to go crazy on Lopez. And, you know, I said, well, that has nothing to do with us. We getting ready to be bumped up to the main event. And then Franchon called me, crying again. I mean, she bawling. They canceled the fight. And showed up, the whole card got canceled.
Wow.
So you talk like about a $10 million card being thrown out the door, right? And then finally, once we got our belts back, we ended up, you know, scheduling this particular fight that she just fought in. And guys, I'm gonna tell you something. Out of all my years, that had to be top 2 best fights that I've ever been involved in my entire life.
Well, that's awesome, man. Look, we appreciate you, man. That was dope. We're about to wrap up though. We're about to hit our time. Is it any really short parting shots you want to say? I got about 20 seconds. Any plugs you want to give?
Well, just go to y'all because I love your platform and I wish you all the love and all the blessings in the world. I told Ray quickly that the Holy Quran teaches that Satan said that he's going to lie and wait on you on your path. He's going to attack you from the front, the rear, the left, and the right. But God told him, anybody that listened, and he said to God that none of them would be grateful for what you've done for him. God told him, I'm paraphrasing, whoever follow you, I'm going to fill hell with you and them. So